What's going on, ladies and gents, boys and girls, guardians of all ages? Joker back again, once again, and today, people, we have something completely different. We're taking an idea ripped straight from the one, the only, Lord Nuxanor or Nux Taku. Link to his channel in the description below, because, let's be honest, originality is dead. So, I am ripping off his greatest flexes in anime series, but I don't upload anime videos. Maybe one day I'll talk about some of my favorite anime like Maha Shoujo Madoka Magica or Steins Gate, but today is not that day. So in true remix fashion, because I've never uploaded a video about anime, we're not going to be doing the greatest flexes in anime. Duh. Nor are we going to be doing the greatest flexes in Gentai. We're going to be doing the greatest flexes in Destiny lore. And to stay true to the format, if this video can get, I don't know, 1,500 likes, the biggest flexes in Destiny lore part 2 will be out within the week. And at that point, it's really out of my control. So without further ado, let's dive right in. First flex. So for our first flex, we have what is quite possibly the biggest dick move. You'll find out why that's funny in a moment. And there's absolutely positively no way that we could have started this video off without talking about quite possibly one of the greatest flexers in all of Destiny lore, Emperor Calus, who is also one of the best written characters in Destiny lore. Link to that video in the description below. But if we had to narrow down Emperor Calus's flexes to one single moment of flexing, it would be his inaugural flex. First, some setup, some super condensed backstory, a little bit of foreplay. Long ago in a galaxy far, far away, Calus led a rebellion to overthrow the Cabal elite and make himself Emperor of the Cabal, as one does. The Cabal elite wanted endless war, and Calus wanted endless soup and salad, or something like that, it's not important. What is Calus overthrew them, and he was made Emperor. And then we have when he gave his inaugural address. I'll quote the events from the aptly named inaugural address Pulse Rifle. Quote, "My first act as Emperor was to send the Consul into the wasteland. The golden sun would burn away his corrupt form, a fitting symbol for the revolution that was to be my reign. I wanted a desert of pure white sand to stage my celebration. It took them 3 days to clear the wasteland of any stone or plant of offending color. But when they were done, it was a perfect canvas for the Violet Pavilion. We recreated my court in nearly every detail beneath the glinting sun. The first act of my coronation was to have the council kneel at my feet. He was a pathetic figure, stripped of title, rank, and clothing. He would never wield power again, and would beget no heir. I made sure of that personally. I had only a single word for him. Run." So where do we even start? This flex has so many layers to it. Not only did Calus win a civil war and become emperor, which is a flex in and of itself, but instead of just executing his opposition, he set out to make examples of at least the council, who you'll remember was Gary's right-hand man. And how did he do this? Well, he had the wasteland cleared till it was nothing but pure white, but then he goes and removes the council's cabals. He doesn't make some underling do it. No. He goes in wielding what I have to imagine is the Cabal equivalent of a doll spoon and does it himself. Kind of a dick move. But it gets even better, because Calus doesn't give two shits and or a fuck about the council. He just lets him go. And I know what you're thinking, but Joker, he fully expected the council to die traversing the barren wasteland. Did he though? I mean, seems kinda silly to cut off someone's cabals so that they'll never have an heir if you really believe they're going to die. Just saying. So this mad lad, unafraid of the council getting any sort of revenge, cuts his cabals off and then sends him out into wasteland. He's like, yeah, you're free. Bye-bye. Sure, this would kind of sort of backfire in Calus's face. The council would find Gull, raise him to be an instrument of revenge, and temporarily dethrone Calus. But at the end of the day, when you tally it all up, Calus being exiled led to him finding the Nothing, and somehow contact with the Nothing transformed him into a godlike being. We're not exactly clear on how that transpires because, well, the lore on that is kind of muddied, if not outright fabricated. But hey, fucking details. So ultimately, Calus gets the last laugh because Gary, the council, basically everybody who transpired against him is dead. And he's a god, so there is that. Win-win. Next flex. So on Twitter, I asked a bunch of people what they thought the best flexes in Destiny lore was. And our next one was suggested by the lore Grand Pumbaa himself. My name is Daddy. My name is Bife. Anyways, so this flex does contain some spoilers for the end of Destiny 2 Shadowkeep. So the story of Shadowkeep essentially boils down to Eris found this pyramid on the moon, and it unleashes nightmares. Eris then wants us to go around killing all these nightmares and collecting essences to build a set of armor so that we could go and talk to the pyramid ship. After about 3 to 4 hours of doing mostly nothing but grinding out these essences, you are ready to go to the pyramid. The pyramid that has been expecting you. And how do we know that it's been expecting us? Because it hijacks our ghost to tell us. Now this is a massive flex in and of itself. I mean, what stops the darkness from killing our ghost now that it controls it? And then spawning, I don't know, Oryx or Crota or thousands of enemies. Nothing. In fact, you can die while doing this mission after your ghost has been possessed, and the darkness is just like, yeah, here you go, revive. But that's not even the best part. So we board the ship, and we fight Crota, we fight Gaul, we fight the Fanatic, and these fights aren't here to stop our progress. The darkness doesn't give a shit about us. No, these fights are here so that the darkness can remind us of the Traveler's failures. That's probably why we don't see Oryx, by the way, because we dealt with that pretty much almost immediately. But Crota with the Great Disaster has a lasting effect on Eris, and we were kind of dragged into that, so we have an emotional attachment to that. Gaul took the Traveler, took our light, took over the city, killed thousands if not millions of people, and the Fanatic was instrumental in the death of Cayde. So these are enemies that kind of sort of display the Traveler's failures, and Oryx really isn't. Because, you know, only thousands of Awoken died, but I mean, every named character lived eventually, so it doesn't matter. Anyway, so we board the ship, we fight Crota, we fight Gaul, we fight the Fanatic, and we make our way to a statue. And what happens? Well, we get an orb. And this is essentially the darkness giving us its phone number, on top of telling us it's coming, giving us time to prepare. Because it doesn't care about us, we're not a threat. And then, for the next 9 weeks, the darkness sends us text messages, flexing on our absolute lack of knowledge when it comes to the light and the darkness and who's right and who's wrong and what everything in existence means. It doesn't need to tell us it's coming. It doesn't need to tell us why it's going to destroy us. It just does because it can. Next flex! So this is another 2-for-1, and it stars the mad lad of a Titan himself, Saint 14. And no, we will not be talking about how he just flexed on everyone in the most recent DLC by not only coming back from the dead, but holding this Titan bubble there for as long as the mission lasts. Saint 14, ladies and gents, boys and girls, guardians of all ages, flexing on every Titan, Hunter, Warlock, anyone who's ever used a super. Ever. No. This is another flex of Saint 14. During the founding of the city, the Fallen were actually a problem. Imagine that. I know right now they're nothing more than a 4th-rate enemy with 3rd-rate weapons, but at one point they were an actual threat. And one of the biggest threats at this time was the House of Devils. So what does Saint 14 do? He challenges the Kel of the House of Devils to personal combat and headbutts him to death. He doesn't shoot him, he doesn't stab him, he doesn't Galahorn him or Thunderlord him or super him. No, he fucking headbutts him to death. This move is so legendary that it was immortalized in this new emote. That's actually part of the DLC, so thank you Bungie for not flexing on our wallets. Now, if only I could do this to people in the Crucible. Even if I died while doing it, it would be worth it. Kinda like Halo assassinations. So Saint has just headbutted this Kel to death, and he's lying there and he's in a mixture of his own exofluids and Kel blood with brain matter smeared across his face, and the speaker dials him up. He's like, oh, hey, by the way, Saint, so for some reasons that are beyond my comprehension, I totally had nothing to do with it, and definitely did not exile Osiris from the city. Well, Osiris has just gone insane, and he's gone to Mercury. Fearing the hornet's nest that Osiris was about to kick, Saint, like the fucking Chad he is, stands up, wipes the viscous and ichor and brain matter off himself, and tells his ghost to ready his Vex armaments. Then he goes in search of Osiris. Now, Saint doesn't find Osiris and would ultimately die in the Infinite Forest. but not before killing Vex for hundreds of years, relative to the Infinite Forest's time dilation. But that's not the biggest flex, not by a long shot. So, the Vex, unable to deal with Saint 14, construct a Vex mine to drain his light. We'll go ahead and ignore the clear retcon here, because even in the DLC where we learn this information, it's established at the beginning of the DLC that the Vex don't understand what light is until the events of Destiny 2, so how did they create the anyways, so they create this mind to drain Saint 14's light. And Saint, he's like, fuck it, I'll kill that too. Quote, never found Osiris, but I've killed enough Vex to end a war. And they, in turn, struck a fatal blow. They completed a mind with the sole function to drain the light from me. It worked very well. Don't worry, not that you worry much, it took them centuries to build, keyed to the unique frequency of my light. And I sit atop its shattered husk. I mourn that I will never reach the heights you have. To me, you represent everything a Guardian can become. Yours is a thriving city, so different from mine. My whole 14th life, I fought to make my city yours. I never finished. All I have left is this weapon. The Cryptarchs say you crafted it yourself, built out of scraps and light and sheer will, inside the Infinite Forge. I'll make sure it finds its way back to you. When you gave it to me, I swore I would make it my duty to follow your example. I'm still trying. Saint 14.
What is this?
The perfect paradox, built by my Guardian out of spare parts and light and sheer will to aid you.
The Cryptarchs, my ghost, sure, why not? Anyways, so Saint 14, with a shotgun that we gave him, so a weapon that technically doesn't exist yet, flexes on the Vex so hard for hundreds of years, killing an army of Vex, that they had to create a specific Vex mind to drain his light, which should technically be impossible because the Vex at this time didn't understand the light or paracausal beings. See everything that went down between the Vex and Oryx in the Book of Sorrows. And none of that matters because Saint 14 flexes on them so hard that when they're finally able to kill him after centuries and countless Vexes killed, they erect a shrine to him on the corpses of all those Vex that he killed. I don't think there's anything better than flexing on your enemy so hard, they're like, I can't even be mad, bro. In fact, I kinda respect it. But next flex. So no, before you say anything, this flex is not here purely so I could put some lusty looking version of Marazov in the thumbnail that would get people to click on this video and watch it. Because really, this is one of the greatest flexes in all of Destiny. Hear me out. So Marazov, Queen of the Awoken, she's making all her preparations to do battle with Oryx. And we know how that ends up. She's shooting her wishes into the Wall of Wishes, Riven's off doing wish dragon things with these wishes, and Mara just decides, you know what? I need some good dick. Like, my loins are aching, and you know what? Fuck it. I might die tomorrow. So what does Marazov do? Well, Marazov does what Marazov does. She has her pet wish dragon bend time and space and reality and warp all of causality to summon Lord Shaxx for a booty call. She wants a little bit of wooing, so she throws a book at Lord Shaxx. And Lord Shaxx doesn't take orders from no one. Did she not hear about Twilight Gap? I mean, she's about to have her Twilight Gap spread, so you'd think, but no, she didn't hear about Twilight Gap, I guess. So she throws him this book, and he's like, psh, I'm insulted. Here you are commanding me to read a book. How little do you think of me? He then grips the book in his hand, burns it, and proceeds to recite it from memory. Because, fuck you, Mara, that's why. I have to imagine that this was done out of pure spite, not because she told him to, but to prove that he could. So we start out with a Mara flex, and it turns into a Shaxx flex, but then, you know what, they're kind of flexing on each other, because why not? That's how any good booty call should work. Next flex! Now, I'm only going to talk about this flex briefly because it is a 4-word flex. So, you recall the last flex, where I iterated about the Queen of the Awoken summoning Lord Shaxx for a booty call. Well, when Lord Shaxx finally gives her the Striker Special and Titan slams right down the center of her Twilight Gap, the helmet stayed on. Because As we all know, helmets stay on in combat zones. Anyways, ladies and gents, boys and girls, guardians of all ages, that's going to be it for the first ever, the inaugural, some might even say, episode of Best Flexes in Destiny Lore. And to be honest, this was a lot of fun to do. This format sort of uniquely allows me to talk about interesting pieces of lore that don't quite have enough substance to make up their own video, or would be pieces of lore that got lost in a broader character-focused video. Say you do a video on Saint 14, well, you might remember that he headbutted a Cal and how he died, but this format really allows me to sort of elucidate on it and exaggerate and expand and just get into describing it really nitty and gritty, while still being true to that lore. And like we saw in this video, not all flexes are created equally. Some flexes are there to make you love a character, some flexes are there to demonstrate the depravity of a character, like with Calus. I mean, giving somebody the Theon treatment and removing their cabals is pretty messed up. But if you guys like this sort of content, let me know in the comments below. Hell, let me know your favorite flexes in all of Destiny lore, and you might see them in the Greatest Flexes of Destiny Lore Part 2. And that video might even be out this week if you manage to hit 1,500 likes. Anyways, thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, follow me on Twitter or Patreon if you're feeling particularly generous. Links to that are in the description below. All of that feels super, super weird to say because I've never said it before, but YouTube is in a particularly scary place right now. But above all else, ladies and gents, boys and girls, guardians of all ages, stay frosty.